quite busy. I'd like to tell you a little bit about Alan Wilson. He's now serving his 4th term as South Carolina's Attorney General after being re-elected in November of 2022. He has also served in the National Guard for over 25 years, including a combat tour in Iraq, achieving the rank of Colonel. As Attorney General, he's focused on fighting human trafficking, and a 2019 report ranked our state the best in the nation for improving its human trafficking laws. And last year's report showed continued improvement in fighting that crime. And it's something we don't think about, but it's happening every day, and I'm sure he'll share a little bit about that. He has led on numerous national issues and has sued the federal government to keep South Carolina from becoming a plutonium dumping ground. He's also fought against frivolous lawsuits that target manufacturers. Alan has secured the largest settlement in state history of more than $500 million over the federal government's refusal to remove nuclear waste from the Savannah River site. So these are issues that impact us every day, and his office is working hard for us. So please give a warm Lexington welcome to our Attorney General, Alan Wilson.
Does this thing walk around? Can I move around without the speaker getting? I'd like to not be tethered. It's great to be with all of you this morning. First off, Bob's over there talking about how awesome and great my speech is going to be. And I'm thinking, oh Lord, he's mismanaging expectations. Right out of the gate, I was like, kind of lower them. So, but it's great to be with everyone today. When I walk in here and I see this very diverse, eclectic group of people from very different walks of life, it just a bunch of memories flood in from people that I've gotten to see over my many years of public service and my many years of just living in this community. And so it's great to be part of this chamber. Thank you so much for inviting me. And I'll tell you right now, I have such a great relationship with your law enforcement here. I see Sheriff Jay Kuhn. Nobody puts baby in the corner. I don't know what you're doing back there. But Jay's been a real champion for you, and whether it's with the Human Trafficking Task Force or his efforts on internet safety for kids, they're part of the ICAC Task Force, and we have a great working relationship with the grand jury. We'll talk more about that in a minute. It's funny though, in the last month or so, I've been asked to speak on a very diverse group of subjects. If I'm going, no matter where I go, and no matter what I talk about, the people that are having me come there and speak, they say something to the effect of, if I'm going to speak to a church, they say, come tell us about your walk with Christ and how the Murdaugh trial affected it. Criminal justice reform. Tell us about those reforms and how they can have impacted the Murdaugh trial. Last week, I went to give an ethics CLE to the Mississippi National Guard in Gulfport, Mississippi, and they said, come talk to us about legal ethics and the Murdaugh trial. And no matter what I go talk about, somehow the Murdaugh trial gets folded into it. And so don't worry, I will talk about the Murdaugh trial. That seems to be the only thing that people are interested in. I don't give a shout out because I put together, and I say I, but I really should. I'll take credit. I put together a team of some of the most amazing men and women who tried that case, and the parents are one of those people who's in this room right now. For those of you who watch them, or how many people watch it on TV or watch it on the internet, there was always someone there, a fixture on the pew right behind the attorney's table. That was Carly Jewell, the paralegal, the chief paralegal, and her parents were sitting right here, Wayne and Lee. Would y'all stand up? If you go back, stand up. And their daughter, Carly, I hired her a couple of years ago, and I'm so grateful that I did because she's been an amazing addition to our team. And anyone that can basically, herding Creighton Waters is like herding feral cats. And so she did an amazing job of herding all the attorneys up there and keeping the trains moving on time. But anyway, I want to, first off, when I talk about the role of the Attorney General's Office, I think that's what you wanted me to talk about, a little bit about the role of the Attorney General's Office, and I'm going to be like a rock skipping across the surface of the lake, just hitting some real quick brief issues. But before I throw that rock and skip it on the issues, there was one former elected official I want to give a shout out to, our former Lieutenant Governor, Bob Healy. I'm sure there's someone else here who's elected or was elected and I didn't see, and I apologize if I missed you, but So the first thing, I want to start off with an anecdote from history to kind of illustrate. People think they know what the Attorney General's office does. They read a lot of facts about the office. They maybe form opinions about me or about the office or its role, and then they draw conclusions from the facts that they see on the news or read in the paper, and they even know what the Attorney General's office is at all. But I'm going to use a little anecdote from history to illustrate why I think a lot of people have misjudged or don't understand the role of the AG's office, and I'll go into the issues. So one of my favorite characters from history, obviously a very pivotal character at a very crucial time in our nation's history, is Abraham Lincoln. I know I'm here in South Carolina talking about Abraham Lincoln, but I always thought he was great at illustrating and using humorous stories to basically illustrate a very powerful point. And so early in Abraham Lincoln's legal career, long before he was known as a president or anyone famous, he was a local attorney, and he was representing a train company who had basically was being sued in tort because they had a train crash and a bunch of people got injured. And so Mr. Lincoln goes to court, and he's defending this train company. And at the end of the trial, the plaintiff's attorney, the counsel on the other side, gets up and gives the most articulate, brilliant oration of the facts and the law. It was 2 hours long, it was all-encompassing, and basically just really summed up the case beautifully. And it was just a very powerful closing argument. Abraham Lincoln, young Abe, gets up, and he stands up in front of the jury and the judge, and he says, "Gentlemen of the jury, my opposing counsel has the right facts, but has drawn the wrong conclusions." And the jury and the judge kind of chuckled at that statement, and Mr. Lincoln then sat down. And then the judge charged the jury with the law, and the jury receded for a brief few moments, and then the jury returns and comes back with a verdict in favor of Mr. Lincoln's client. And when they dismissed everyone in the courtroom, everyone came running up to Abe and said, "Hey, how is it that this guy spoke for 2 hours and just nailed it? And all you did is you stood up and you said, 'My opponent has the right facts, but simply drawn the wrong conclusions.'" And Abraham Lincoln, being quick, he said, "Well, last night I was across the street at the local tavern having drinks with the judge and the gentleman of the jury." And that was before they had their judicial reform, right? We'll talk about that too. And he said, "I told them a story while we were having drinks, and they simply must have remembered the story." And I said, "What story did you tell them?" And Abraham Lincoln says, "Well, I just told them the story of a young boy who came running from a field one night, yelling to his father, who was a farmer. And the young boy says, 'Pa, Big Sis is in the hayloft with the hired help. Pa, he has pulled his trousers down and she has hiked her skirt up. Pa, I think they're going to pee all over our hay.'" To which the father says, "Son, you have the right facts, but you have drawn the wrong conclusions." So, I'm going to try to shoehorn that anecdote into what I'm going to talk about today. It's probably going to be kind of difficult, but it got a laugh out of you this service, so I'll take the win. People all the time are watching the news and they're getting facts, right? But how oftentimes do we draw the wrong conclusions when we think we have all the facts, but you can have the right facts and still draw the wrong conclusions. A lot of people do that about the Attorney General's office every single day. The first thing I want to talk about is just to educate you, give you facts about the office to help you better draw conclusions when you're learning about us as we do things out on the media. They're not Murdaugh related, of course. But one of the things that I'm really proud of is the growth of the Human Trafficking Task Force. Every time I'm sitting in front of a group of people, I always talk about the growth of the Human Trafficking Task Force. In my bio, it was mentioned there. It's one of the things I'm most proud of. Because in 2011, when I came into office, there was no human trafficking statute in South Carolina. Now, a lot of people think, do we need a human trafficking statute? Is this something that really, it seems like a solution in search of a problem. I always like to remind people, human trafficking is a worldwide phenomenon that affects people here on Main Street, literally on Main Street in Lexington, South Carolina. Human trafficking is a $100 to $250 billion a year industry worldwide. There are about 45 million victims of human trafficking victims every year worldwide. The United States is the #1 destination for human trafficking in the world. It is the fastest growing enterprise, only behind drug trafficking. South Carolina sits nestled between two of the top human trafficking hubs in the United States, that of Atlanta and Charlotte. Richland County is a top 5 county for human trafficking within the state, right across the river. That's not to say that Lexington doesn't have it too. That's just the number of reports, right? Human trafficking actually happens, when I used to think of human trafficking, I thought of it as something happening in a Hollywood movie that happens in a distant, far-off land with exotic, like, you had to be of a socioeconomic class to be a victim, and you had to be a member of a mafia or a gang or something to be the trafficker. But actually, it happens more frequently and prominently in local communities and neighborhoods with people who are members of the same family. So it's not like you're getting abducted and then sold into some slave trade. It happens. And we created the task force over 10 years ago, and it has grown substantially with the support and help of the General Assembly. But we are now, our task force has grown from 15 members to over 800 members with 10 regional task force, and we're touching every single county in the state of South Carolina. And as you read a couple of years ago, with the help and support of the General Assembly and the men and women of the task force that our office that I chair, South Carolina went from one of the worst states in combating human trafficking 10 years ago to the gold standard for fighting human trafficking today. And I give all the credit to the men and women of the task force throughout the state. And so I just wanted to give you that little report. It is something that is real and it is happening. If you ever want me to come to your company or your business or send people from the task force to educate you and how y'all could be involved in it, I'm happy to do that. I could spend as much time talking about the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, but as we know, the internet has become so pervasive in our day-to-day lives that people don't think about how invasive it can be and how the internet has been weaponized. It's a great tool. I tell people the internet is like a chainsaw in the hands of a person who understands and respects its power. It's a great tool, but in the hands of a 5-year-old, it's a deadly weapon, both to the 5-year-old and anyone near the 5-year-old. Sometimes as adults, we act like 5-year-olds on the internet, exposing our personal identifiable information. Our kids certainly do it because they become so comfortable. It was funny, I had someone applying for a job to be my IT security specialist in the office, and one of the things he said, it was funny, when I entered this career, they said, whatever you do, don't ever provide any information that identifies who you are on an online platform. This is back in the AOL days of the late 90s. He says, when I applied for your job to be your security specialist, I had to give them my name, my first, last, middle name, my home address, my social security number, my driver's ID number. I had to give all this information on your online platform. So society has changed in how we engage one another with our information, but the criminals out there have evolved, and they use it to prey on our kids, and they use it to prey on us. Our office offers people who will come out and talk to you about how to protect yourself and your children. This is a service we do. You already pay for it as taxpayers. So if that is something else you want our office to come do, we will gladly do it. So I just wanted to let you know that. I'm going to move on to, real quick, the next to the last topic I was going to talk about is some of my views on good government. I've given a lot of speeches as the Attorney General. A lot of people think of the Attorney General probably just how many people saw the office operating during the Murdaugh trial, that we put bad guys away. Whenever I walk up to somebody and say, hey, if you ever need me, call me, and I'll give them my card. And most people inevitably say, God, I hope I never need you. If I need you, I'm being prosecuted or sued, right? Our office does so much more than that. We do so much more than just put bad guys away and work with our law enforcement brothers and sisters. We do a lot more than, sue people or defend the state when it's being sued. We're more than just a state's law firm. We get in there into the policy side and we advocate. We work with members of the General Assembly to try to provide better government services when we don't feel like they're being provided. Let me give you my views of good government, and I've said this many times. One day I was running, I was out training in an Army event, and I was on a long run in Norman, Oklahoma. I remember exactly where I was, and I was thinking, what is good government? It was one of those 10-mile runs where I really went down a rabbit hole, and I came up with a 5-way test in my mind as I was running on what I would want to expect from government. So when I talk to groups like this, and you're all business leaders, and people who contribute to this community, this is something you can write down if you want to know what a good test for good government is. Everything that comes out of government, whether it's our town council, city council, county council, state legislature, Congress, or some other government governing body, is the rule, policy, or regulation, is it responsible? Does it create predictability? Is it predictable, right? Is it accountable to the people who put that system in place? And then the two byproducts are, does it create, so responsible, predictable, accountable, profitable, and stable being the last two. Does it create the conditions for profitability in the market? And does it create stability in our communities and our society? Anything that comes out of government, whether it's a politician, remember, when you go to the ballot box, you give us power, you give us authority. Are we responsible with the power and authority we've been given? And then you give us your money, your sweat equity, right? In the form of taxes, right? The government takes that from you and uses that. Are we responsible with the power you give us and the money we take from you? That's the first test. The second test is We talk about predictable. This is one especially the electric co-ops will appreciate. Do the regulations, laws, and rules create more predictability in the marketplace or less predictability? Because what happens when the rules governing how you conduct your business, whether you're in the banking industry, the healthcare industry, the insurance industry, whether you're in an electric cooperative, regardless of what you do, retail, it doesn't matter what you do. Does the regulations and laws that we, people in government, pass on you, does it make it easy for you to do your job, or do you have to hire regulation enforcement specialists, compliant officers, oh, and God forbid, attorneys? Do you have to hire more than? And what happens when you do that? Where does the cost get passed to? The cost, I tell people, everyone talks about corporate taxes. Corporations don't pay taxes, people pay taxes. It's like property taxes. Property doesn't pay taxes, a person pays a tax. How does that impact? The government doesn't have any money. It just has the ability to move a number and then change how much money it takes and how much power it puts on people. And so, are we being responsible? Are we creating conditions that are predictable and last, accountable? How much time? Still good. 5 more minutes, okay. Accountable. 10 more. I'll stop in 5 and take questions, because they're going to want to talk about murder. The accountability prong is the one that I want to focus on real quick for about 2 minutes. I was talking to a couple people in here. They were talking about, hey, I hear that you're very interested in judicial reform. Why judges are elected. And that is the accountability prong of good government. Are the 3 branches of government equally accountable to each other? If somebody does something, can we go to a specific individual and hold them accountable for the bad policy, rule, or law, or regulation, or government action that was perpetrated on us? How do you hold government accountable? And when you have a government system that is designed where there is no accountability, and that may not be its intent, but that's how it happens to be, then that is an element of bad government. Let me explain in South Carolina. One of the biggest issues, people ask me, what are some of the biggest issues you're facing? Judicial reform is one of them. I don't know if any of you have followed how judges are elected in South Carolina, but there are 2 states that elect judges the way that we do, us and Virginia. Now, there are states that do it worse than us, but there are states that do it better than us. In South Carolina, we have what's called a Judicial Merit Selection Commission. It's a 10-member commission where all 10 members are appointed by the leadership of the General Assembly, and 6 of the 10 members are actually sitting legislators. When there's an opening for a family court, circuit court judge, appellate court judge, or Supreme Court justice, when there's a vacancy, you could have 10 or 15 or 20 people apply. They apply to the JMSC, which is that legislatively dominated organization, and then the JMSC picks their 3 favorite, the ones that they want the General Assembly to vote on, and then the General Assembly at large votes on the 3 members, and the first place vote getter that gets the first person who gets a majority vote becomes a judge. Now, in the process of electing the judges, tell me, we all graduated, and we all made it past the 3rd grade. In civics class, there's 3 branches of government, and they're all designed to have an equal check on each other so that no one branch becomes all powerful. When judges are making decisions of great import that could affect the criminal justice system, whether a victim's rights are upheld, whether a criminal is held accountable, whether a business is going to be properly and adequately held responsible, if someone's appearing before that judge who has power over that judge, does that cause you to question? The judge may be doing the right thing, the legislature may be doing nothing wrong. It's a perception and optics issue. And there's a great imbalance, and there is no accountable, this is not a good accountable way to elect judges. One of the things we've been asking for is that the executive branch needs an equal seat at the table in the process of electing judges. We don't want to take any power from the General Assembly, but we're, as a prosecutor, as the state's chief legal officer, I live in front of the judicial branch of government, but my branch of government has no say on who's on that branch of government, and if they act inappropriately, we have no say in holding them accountable. But every day they sit in judgment of us. And we believe, whether it's through appointment by the governor or other members of the executive branch should be able to help choose the judges. That was the Cliff Notes version of judicial reform. But I wanted to frame the issue for you. Thank you. I wanted to frame the issue for you so that you could understand why you should care about how judges are elected, because how judges are elected have sometimes a direct and sometimes an indirect impact. But they do have an impact on you as an individual, you as a business owner, or as a community leader. And so I'm going to continue to advocate for that. I just wanted to throw that out there. The last 2 prongs, profitability and stability, I hit on these kind of already. Profitability, government doesn't create revenue, it doesn't create money, it just creates the conditions to either take it or transfer it. Government getting out of the way, allowing you to maximize your profits so you can provide jobs and resources for your employees so they can live and work and raise their families and have the means to do so. And finally, to what end? Why even have a government at all? Stability. Stability in our communities, our cities, our towns, our states, and our nation. People should be able to drive down the streets without the transmission falling out because they're hitting potholes. We should be able to send our kids to school without the fear of them being shot or attacked. That's the whole point of government, is to create stability in our communities. And that's kind of my 5-way test for good government. I went over it real quick because I'm at a breakfast meeting and y'all have to get to your work, and I told her to give me the hook, and she gave me the 5-minute warning. So what I want to do is real quick open up for any questions. I didn't talk about Murdoch because I figured somebody will ask me about it. Are there any questions on anything? She's giving me 2 questions. 2, I have 2. Yes, sir.
In the 2024 election, do you see more voter integrity, or is it going to be a repeat of 2020 where we have the drop boxes, the ballot harvesting, shenanigans on it?
And your question is, do I believe there's going to be more ballot harvesting and drop boxes in the 2024 election? I can't predict what's going to happen in 2024. What I do know is that I've actually gone over to the State Election Commission. I met with the Election Commission Director with my staff. We went through and looked at how the machines operate. We want to know, are they dialed into the internet? The voting machines are not. The poll books are. But when you vote, you don't vote on a thing that's connected to the internet. It's completely self-contained, and whenever you tap that big iPad-looking thing to choose your people you vote for, it spits out your ticket, and you get to look at your ticket, your voting ballot, to see who you voted for, and so it locks it electronically onto a thumb drive, which is then put into it, and then they print out, at the end of the day, they print out that tape, and it goes on the door. The piece of paper you have goes to the next machine, goes into a box, and it drops. If they find any discrepancies in any, they do an automatic, what do you call it, not a recount, but a audit on 10% of the precincts. And if there's any discrepancies between the ticket that they print out at the end of the day and the number of ballots in the precinct, they go and they do a 10% audit. And if they're within a deviation of like 0.0 whatever percent, it's good. And when they do that, if they have any deviation, then they do the whole count for the whole area, the whole ballot system. So it's both a paper ballot system and an electronic system. The electronic system is so they can get the results quickly, but the fail-safe is they have paper ballots that are in a secure box with poll watchers and observers watching them. So our system is pretty good. The only thing that's connected to the internet is when you go to show your ID and they have to verify that you live in that precinct. That is the only list that dials up. I don't know if that directly answers your question. I can't predict the future, but what I can tell you is if we get evidence of election fraud, we will investigate it. But we have to be able to have proof beyond a reasonable doubt that there was fraud, and that's very difficult. I have time for one more question. Yes, sir.
I don't want to disappoint you, so I'll give you one last question.
Okay.
Got a little 2-part question. If the boat crash didn't happen, these chains of events, maybe the murder don't occur, all the stealing money, the everyday cause is still out there. And then how early on, charges took a while. How early on were y'all pretty certain that he's one that did it? Obviously, it takes a long time for investigation.
So the boat crash doesn't happen. Does the murder charges come? And that's the first question. And then the second question was,
how early on in the investigation
do we?
pretty certain it's him? Because the charge.
I'll go really fast because those are great questions. So the boat crash contributed to us finding out about the fraud. If there was no boat crash, remember it was the lawsuits filed against him where they were trying to compel his financial records so that they could know how much money he had, because the Beach family, the family of the young woman who was killed in the boat crash, was bringing a wrongful death suit against him. They were suing him personally, and they were trying to compel him, and of course that compulsion of him to turn over his documents, among other things, contributed to him coming to that critical inflection point where he made that fatal decision to kill his family. So he was trying to hide the 10 years of theft and fraud that he was committing against everyone in his life. And if the court, it was 3 days later that he was going to have to go to that motions hearing. And then the second question, so our office didn't get the case. Paul and Maggie were murdered on the 7th of June. On the 11th of August is the day that I got a call from the solicitor's office saying, we've just been told Alec is a suspect. And so we're going to recuse ourselves from the case. And August 7th of 2021 was when we got the case. It was many months before that we actually got to the point to where we actually believed we suspected he was the killer from the day we got it. We didn't have evidence. The famous video of the dog tail, y'all familiar with the dog tail? You know, Cash's tail, Cash the dog, and Bubba's yelling in the back. That was on Paul's phone. Remember, he said he was never down there, and he was actually there 3 minutes before they were murdered, but he said he was up at the house taking a nap. The video that actually contradicts his story was not discovered in Paul's phone until April of 2022, 10 months after the murders occurred. It was just hearsay. Some guy that Paul was talking to said, yeah, we heard his voice in the background. They found that video, and that is when it really crystallized for us that he was there when the murders occurred. There was other evidence that we used to convict him besides that, but that is when it really zeroed in. It was in April of 2022. He was indicted in last July. Okay? It is 8:23. I want to wrap up my remarks. I could have gone a lot more into Murdaugh, but I'm going to reserve that for y'all to ask questions. But thank you for allowing me to speak to this community. I live here in this community, literally 5 minutes that way. So it's always an honor to come speak to a group of community leaders and business leaders who contribute so much to what goes on here in Lexington and in the Midlands area. And as your Attorney General, I want to say thank you for allowing me to be part of this community and be able to come here and address all of you. If any of you want me to come speak, or any of my staff to come speak on any of these other issues, to include Murdaugh, we will come and do a full presentation. But again, thank you so much for all that you do, and thank you for allowing me to be here today.